Kusia?
Carolina is just fine.
No, Kusia at least.
Kusia.
Kusia?
That's fine.
Kusia. Bueno, vamos a ir empezando. La charla de ahora es bastante especial porque, bueno, Carolina Cusa, que es nuestra ponente, mandaron el juego que vais a ver de Taumaturge al Valencia Indie Summit y como veréis es un juego enorme, una cosa que no es tan rara teniendo en cuenta que han participado en juegos como Witcher 3, Baldur's Gate 3 o Divinity 2, pero no el viejo, sino el más nuevo. Así que vamos a dejar que Carolina nos cuente lo que han podido hacer, cómo han hecho este desarrollo de este juego. Y, first of all, a big applause for Carolina Cusa. So,
I will speak to this one.
as you want. Maybe.
Checking if it works. No? Does it? Okay. Hi. You can't hear me? No. Is it better?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Awesome. In case you have any trouble hearing me, just let me know, right? So, first of all, nice to see you. Thank you for having me here. And let's roll with the topic. I'm Carolina, and currently I hold the position of design director at False Theory. I have more than 13 years of experience in the industry, and my backgrounds are mostly of quality assurance and then quest design. So my rookie designer years, I started at CD Projekt Red developing Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. So if among any other activities you romanced Tris Marigold, that was me behind the ropes, so hi. And thank you for that, because Tris is the best, right? After Witcher 3 was released, we moved down south of Poland and founded False Theory with several of our friends from the industry. And in 2017, we landed our very first project, 7, The Days Long Gone. 7 tells the story of a resourceful thief called Teriel and his mysterious demon sidekick, Artanak. And then 7 was followed by a free expansion, Drowned Pass, that adds new quests and mechanics to already existing game. Then we moved to develop 4 Relics of Rivellon with Anshar Studios for Larian and the Divinity Original Sin 2. This was story-driven expansion pack that was totally free. And then we tried to look for new IP for ourselves. And this is how the Taumaturge came to be. And today I would like to introduce you to the creative process, take you on this journey with me, and talk about choices and consequences of it all. So, without further ado, how do you bring new IP to the table? How do you actually convince your team to make this one instead of that one? It happens, from the experience, I would say that it happens by chance, and also you have to have a bit of luck, and also it's your personal preference what you want to do in general. So once upon a time, I've seen this picture on the internet, and it made me laugh, but it also opened some kind of a drawer in the head that it would be really cool to become the summoner, to learn all the spells, the incantations, and the formulas. And if you, by any chance, mess it up, then something unwanted would spawn and just ruin your day. I brought it to the table, and we started to discuss around this idea and build around it because, well, ideas are cheap, right? So throw everything you want at the wall and hope it sticks eventually. All right, so we built on this and we called this idea the grimoire. We decided to place the idea in this Victorian / steampunk setting, so everything from like technology to the inhabitants should give you this vibe of Victorian / steampunk world. And our first prototype was moving around this map. At the right side of it, you see the calendar and everything that was useful for you to track the time, because the time management at first was really important in this project. At the bottom you have roster for your demons, as you were the summoner who were summoning lots of demons, and you could take various actions to move around the map, to place your demons, to do your bidding for you, and it also costs you time, the lifespan of your demons, and so on and so on. So in general, we started with developing systems, and then we wanted just to see what fits and what can be applicable into the story. We introduced the titular grimoire, which was like the command center for you, and everything was here, like your quests, your summoning center for demons, and everything that let you manage the game, the prototype, basically. As we developed the prototype in this fantasy Victorian world, we decided to introduce races. So we had like humans for earth, the bird people for air, water and fire, and so on. And along with it, we also introduced some basic character creation. So you were able to create your hero in any race you wanted. And then we developed combat. So at first, that was something that was really new to us. We never developed this before. So the prototype was this tactical combat, and you were able just to move around really freely, but we also applied some twist. So either by chance or by choice, you were able to be dragged or swap into this demonic realm, and new mechanics then were introduced to the battlefield. If you look closely in the normal world, you see small tree stumps that in this demonic realm will eventually turn into trees that will just slash everything in the area, in the radius. And easiest way to get rid of the tree was either to turn back into the normal world or order your fire demon to set the tree on fire. The tree would then jump out of the earth and run towards the cliff, screaming and then perishing for good eventually. I have to say I was really fond of that idea at that time. And then we closed the whole ecosystem, right? So we invented the gameplay loop, we named it, we closed it so that it seemed that it would be available one day, it could be released one day as a complete game. But then the thing is, it didn't seem right for some reason. And why? We kept asking ourselves, I'm so sorry, why it doesn't feel right, why it doesn't make our hearts skip a bit when we think about it, right? The prototype was almost complete, you could show it and so on, but we didn't love it. The Japanese have this lovely phrase, doki doki. Doki doki is the impression, the impression your heart makes when you are really passionate about some things. If you played Doki Doki Literature Club, this is the very word, right? So we kept asking ourselves, what should we change in the grimoire to make our hearts go doki doki about it? Because then we wanted to show it to the world, to show it to publishers, to find someone who is equally passionate about the project as we are. At that time, we knew that we wanted this to change and eventually become that, but we didn't know the way. And then the COVID hit. So it was not really a great time for changes, but we had to apply it, right? At that time, we had like 25 developers on board, so it was not really that painful to move them homes. We had to start working from homes, and also we had to change the culture of communication for remote only, for Slack, for videos, for showing ourselves online, and talking to people instead of writing messages. But one thing was way easier. During the pandemic, it was so easy to recruit new people because suddenly you were not worried about relocating them or their spouses or their kids and finding new jobs, new schools, and so on and so on. So we grew really fast from 25 to 60 people. 60 people finished this project, released this project. But anyway, since once we established the way of working remotely, we got a huge step back to our first project. And we tried to make a short list of principles that we have to follow in order to change, right? So looking at our first project, 7, we knew that we are really fond, like we have this soft spot for a cheeky bastard type of hero, followed by this mysterious and demon-like sidekick. So that was the principle 1. We want that. We want that in our new project. The second one was, we still like the idea of being the demon master and demons, so we want that as well. And the third one was, well, we are good at telling non-linear, mature stories. So that were the 3 points that we tried to follow from now on. So instead of Victorian steampunk world that could prove problematic or too abstract, sometimes we brought everything to our own backyard. We started to study Warsaw of late 19th century. We moved through countless data archives on internet and not only. And then we started to draw the city of that time that is long gone, but then it became very tempting idea to bring the city back to life, right? This is the first thing that we loved again about this project. Then we started to imagine people of that period in everyday situations, how they would work like, look like, who are they, and so on. And also we remembered that this is the world sprinkled with a bit of demonic magic, right? We invented those scenes, those mood arts that could be easily adapted to a game later. And as a result of these experiments, we created our mood art that became a key art for us. And this is why. Let's take a look at it. There is a woman doing her chores, I don't know, really, in this grim, dark environment, and there is this huge demon looming above her, but she seems not to be scared. In fact, she seems not to be aware of the demon. This is something that we would revisit really often if we lost our track, if we lost our way, if we were in doubt of the project. So let's like break it into pieces. This one became the key art for us because it tells you the fantasy of what should this game become. And there is a lesson here that probably most of you know, especially if you are in charge of your projects. Show, don't tell, right? At the beginning of the project, if everything is like floating around, right? You have no design documents, no prototypes, nothing, but you have the feeling. Put it into a picture, like close it into frame, show it to other people, and they will maybe understand better what you mean, what you want from this project to be. So in this picture, we see this woman, but the hero is not her, because she is not the demon master. She is a prey. And the demon is going after something that is in her, something that is interesting in her. And the hero of this story is standing in front of the picture as we are looking at it. You are the hunter, and you are not after the woman, you are after the demon. So that's how we shifted the balance of the story, and then it all it fit together like this one missing puzzle, and we were like, yes, this is it. Okay, so we've got this, right? And if you ever forget about what this project is about, just take a look at it, all right? You are the hunter. So we started to change the project gradually. We brought everything closer to the skin. You no longer were this commander with the army of generic demons traveling the land. You were this one guy traveling the city. Everything was closer. You could see people living in the city. You could have interactions with them. And as you can see from left to right, we changed the art style as well. So we lost the fantasy-like Victorian vibe, and we turned into more photorealism, eventually. We started to draw the people that main character knows, that are important to him, who interact with him. We started to tell stories about them. Who are they in this city that was once real but now is gone? And also, to be even closer to the skin and to narration, we introduced cinematic dialogues. This is like the very first dialogue you see here. We introduced with this tool in the game. And this handsome potato guy is the prototype of the hero. And speaking of which, we dropped the idea of character creator. I personally also like it in games, and I know people like it because it gives them freedom. But also we wanted to stick to the principle that we had. We wanted a cheeky bastard, right? And we had to build him. We had to write a backstory for him. We had to define him. And it always proves a challenge, on one hand, to create a defined character and to give wiggle room to people to still play the character, right? Because this is RPG. So you have to marry these two somehow. And finally, we decided on the final look of the character, but also on his skills, on who he is in this world. As you can see, the book is still there, the grimoire is still there, so it's still the center of command for the character, the center of all the data you collect on the way. But his skills now are not so occult anymore. We dropped that completely. Instead, Victor is attracted to flaws of character in people, a concept that we know from our lives, right? We didn't invent the wheel. We just adapted it to our needs. Because in normal life, we are imperfect, right? We are flawed. We are flawed because we experience something difficult in our lives, or we feed the flaws. We are imperfect, and we are keeping the cycle of imperfection as we basically tend to our flaws. So with the vague ability to see the flaw in someone, take it out, and ultimately tame the demon, Victor's profession needed a new name. And we moved from any demon masters, demonologists, and so on. And ultimately, we settled with the thaumaturge. That is a miracle worker. So the term is broad enough to be anything you want, actually, from it to be. And at that time, the project also adopted the very same name. So if the demon master changed, demons had to change as well. We dropped the idea of them being a cannon fodder. No, you no longer have a lot of these demons. Each of them is unique. We developed 16 at first of them. Each of them was very unique. We were looking for inspirations in mostly Slavic folklore, but not only. And we were following the lore. However, we added some twist on our own to it. And this is basically the result. These are the final concepts before we put the models in the engine and made them alive. Oh, and also we changed the names. We no longer called them demons because there was no reason for it. So since the master changed, the puppet had to change as well. we called them salutors, which was a better name for them. A salutor, a term comes from Latin and can be translated as a visitor, because these guys visit every place on Earth as the human that carries the flow they are interested in. They visit all corners of Earth, move around, and so on. And also in our lore, a salutor visits a young thaumaturge when they discover their powers and stays with them until they die. So the name was just perfect. And then we also changed combat. So we dropped the idea of the camera floating in a high place around the arena. We dropped the idea of moving around. Instead, we introduced a static camera with some action shots of punches and attacks. We introduced the timeline at the top of the screen that you had to pay attention because it was like a queue of actions and you had to plan ahead. We introduced the mechanics to just swap salutors like that in the combat, so it's very handy and you can swap them like on the spot and pick what you want to do next. And actually, the final shape of the combat is not very different from this prototype. So after we've changed all those things, we were able to establish the maturity, the tonality, I would say, of the story we would like to develop based on the systems, because let's say it, systems should be, well, first, because story is like a river. Story is very fluent, right? You can just shape it into the way you want, but it's not so easy to develop systems. It's not so quick to change them, to invent them anew, right? So story will take everything, right? And at this moment, we knew what we wanted to say by this game. We knew how our key features work together. We were sure that they correspond together. And it was way easier to communicate this, not only to your team, because team already knowed that, but to the publisher. So the publishers knew exactly what you mean by it. And we also settled for our unique sell points, right? It was, again, way easier, and we felt that we are in the right place after inventing the thaumaturge anew, basically. So right now, the real work starts, actually, because the prototypes are there, the thought behind it is there, but now you have to take every tiniest detail of your game and just look at it very closely and iterate endlessly until what you make is, well, perfect for you, understandable, approachable for players, and can be lovable. So right now, if I had a chance to redevelop thaumaturge with all the knowledge I have, with all the experience I have, I guess I wouldn't change that much, but I would expand existing systems. I know what these systems miss. I know that, oh, I would do this and that and so on, and I would save a lot of time spent on R&D in the first place, because R&D took like 50% of development time, right? It's a beast. I would save a lot of time, and I would just enhance what we have. So anyway, bringing new IP to the table and developing it is as challenging as exciting. And you don't know nothing about it, and you don't even have right questions you would like to ask to just get to the shore, right? But if you have these people who are committed to like swim with you, and you understand what your like oars are for, you will be just fine. Thank you so much.
Questions for Carolina or Luis?
You mentioned that during the development, you focus on systems first. So I don't know if you can tell me, because of the game, but in what systems did you focus on? Because the story, there is a way to kind of like think of products which is focus on the systems, and then do the story around those systems so they are cohesive to the story. I have one really good example that I really like, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know it's not a game, but it's a story that circles around a well-established magic system, which is the bending styles. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what were the systems, like characters or the magic system, or what was that system that you bent the story or built the story around?
So let's take the Last Airbender, right? Systems would be, the pitch would be, so there is this world, we are basing on some fantasy world, and we have those cultures that resemble like ancient Japanese or Chinese or Nordic people, so on. And they are masters of elements, and they fight with it, they live with it, they expand their skill in the schools of it. And if I would make a game out of it, I would just stick to these elements, right? So these are my principles. Fantasy world, elements, and funky magic and combat. I want combat, I want gore, right? I want to use these elements. So then you think about systems. What systems you need to give it to player and say, hey, this is my game. So interact with it. Because then story is really easy. There is Aang and Katara and her brother and so on, right? And they meet each other, and there is like this is a story of a journey of them becoming of age, of growing friendship and so on and so on. Story is easy, but systems are hard, because systems are the most basic way of you telling player how to interact with your game. And then you can tell any story you want about it. So with Thaumaturge, the Grimoire, the earlier prototype, since we wanted it to be this kind of economic but also tactical combat, we thought that, yeah, so we need a world map, traveling, log system, which was the Grimoire, the book, and then tactical combat. And then also character creator, because you would expect that, and those races and so on. So you get the fantasy, you break it down, you name the systems, and then you invent the story. So the story and systems can go together, basically, like in the production timeline, right? But systems go first, because this is how people interact with your game.
More questions?
Hi, my name is Jaime. Thanks for coming and talk to us. It was very interesting and really enjoyed the talk. I wanted to ask you about the design of the general aesthetic of the game, because nowadays there are lots of games with demons and this kind of dark aesthetic around. But I can see a really marked aesthetic in this particular game, especially with the color palette and how you design the characters and everything. And I wanted to ask you if you had, like, your team had any strong rules to follow, like, let's try to not look like this, or the opposite, let's try to go this way. How did you manage to get this difference from all the other games that follow this kind of aesthetic?
Okay, so let's scratch the Grimoire, the first one, because it didn't matter, right? When we moved to the Thaumaturge and started to think anew of it, we actually followed, in art, we followed the principles similar to Dishonored, because Dishonored is the game that looks real, almost photorealistic, the world is real, but the characters are deformed a bit, right? They have this style to them that is very like you would chop them out of the block of the wood, and we wanted to research that, to mimic that, but actually further into production we moved away from it because we didn't feel like we can carry it properly. They didn't feel right. They didn't look like the mimics in the in dialogues and on close-ups and so on. And also it was something that was new to us. So we actually dropped that. Some experience stayed with us. But then when the whole game moved to the realistic mode, then we moved the character there as well. And when we were in beta and we had the art style just really settled, we also designed the demons and the magic elements of the game so that they are really vague. You, as a main character, can see demons, can see what they do to people, and you also can see these red particles of magic. But normal people cannot see them, so there is not a lot of influence of demons outside of your eyes, of your life. The only element that we dropped in there are the element of architecture. So sometimes you can see the beautiful tenement with inspirations taken from some demons and so on, from some lore. But otherwise, we tried to keep it at the bay, right?
More questions? Okay, I have one doubt. Well, I have a lot, to be honest. But the first question I have is, how do you decide you wanted to make this game? Because you have a profile of RPGs. So in some moment, I don't know if it was a team, a big team, a small team, that you made your research and you said, okay, we wanted to make a game about demon hunters in Warsaw, end of the 19th century. How do you reach this?
So let me rephrase your question.
Yeah.
You would like to know how we knew that that was the right direction, right?
Yeah, this is what you wanted to make.
I don't know. I've seen stupid picture on the internet, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do this.
Yes.
No, but really, that was the majority of it, because where do ideas come from, right? We don't know. My mother asked me that recently, and I was like, I don't know.
Because I have seen something like, it's like Witcher, but instead witches are demons.
Yes. So there is another
instead
topic in your question
Uh-huh.
that we see similarities. Well, we have to, because I grew in this environment as a designer, right? That was the first job as a designer for me, so I learned those systems. And of course, you just cannot take them, but, well, they were good. So instead of inventing it anew, just, take the idea, understand what was good about it, and then if it fits your game or you need it in your game, just adapt it, right? And change it. So it is yours uniquely, but then it serves the same purpose.
Okay, another question. There is another question, or I continue? Yeah.
Hello, and thank you for the lecture. So I was wondering, after hearing everything and so on, so the major takeaway is that it's easy to know what we want, the story-wise, the aesthetic and so on, but the idea is that we should prototype as much as possible, as with the least resources as possible, just to make sure the systems that are the hardest thing to implement are correct and in the right way, so you can later improve upon those, right? So that's the idea.
Yes. So there are different approaches for developing games. Okay, so the main takeaway is nobody knows how to make games, all right? But we have some good practices, okay? And even if our pedigree is telling stories, the story comes in the middle of the production till the end. Let's say it. So we don't start with story. I mean, we start with the idea, right? But then systems, and systems have to correspond with the story, or at least your fantasy, the fantasy of the game. And regarding your question about developing as fast as you can, yes, fail faster, develop crappy systems, all right, and improve them. develop them as fast as you can and just throw them away or improve them or decide this doesn't work, this works, and we saved like a lot of time on it. And because on the second track, you can have your story designers working on it, and well, you will meet some point in development where story and systems will have to meet, right? Because they exist as those separated beings, but at least you failed a lot here with the systems and you know where you want to go. Story will adapt and then perfect. you have a game. So fail faster. That's my advice.
Apart from Juan Luis and me, there are other questions? Okay, Juan Luis.
Hello again. You mentioned that make system, and if they don't work, throw away, or rework it if you enjoyed it. This is you mentioned previously that at some point the team was 20 people and then increased during COVID. What was the difference working with 20 people and then 60 people? Because for my project, I'm only one person, and sadly, I wish it was as quick just to make a system and that doesn't work, just throw it away. Because sometimes those kind of decisions, you really need to you really need to think about it, because it's a lot of time then reworking everything. I know it happens, life is life, but would like to know what was the process of, let's look at this system. Does it work? Does it really not work? What are the things that we look, and what are the things that we don't? Of course, in relation to your project, and what was like a technique or something that you would do or use that, okay, we have until this month, or we have until this week. If we don't have something better than this, we'll keep it. If we have, we'll see what were kind of like the do's or don'ts that you had on during the project.
Sure. So, of course, that was the shortcut that I used to throw it away. Well, it's not a decision of a single person, right? Because usually games are made by a team and then there is like a chain of command. So what I meant is make sure your people understand to develop ugly but functional things, because we don't care if they look right. It has to be clickable in the right way. It has to sell the fantasy. I want to like interact with the game. I want to touch it. And then if it clearly doesn't work, lead with the team and the creatives, make a decision. What do we do with it? Because it's rotten, right? So either we fix it or we throw it away. What was good about it? What was bad about it? Maybe we can iterate faster. Maybe we can just take some elements and put it into another prototype. It all depends, of course, on what is your project, on how your culture works, on how your team works. However, I teach my people, if I'm actually a head of department, I teach my people to ask questions really fast and do not get stuck on something for more than 10 minutes. If you got stuck and you cannot solve it, you cannot find the answer in 10 minutes, ask. Because I know that people, especially creative people at the beginning of their journey, are really proud of their creations. Yes, and of course it's natural, right? This is like their baby. But sometimes, and I did this too, sometimes they tend to keep to themselves until they are done. But sometimes it's just too late. Or your lead asks, so, where is it? And you're like, no, I'm not done yet. And then you show it to them, and it's not even good. And it's nobody's fault, but again, fail faster, ask for help. Even if you are senior, if you are principal and so on, ask what you don't know. So that would be way easier, right? And the difference between working with 25 to 60 people was just that we could distribute the work among more people. It was actually, well, it was challenging at times, but in the times of pandemic, you didn't have those meetups in some kind of separated rooms, right? So you were not wasting time on that. You were just calling, or you were calling the group of people and so on. So we saved time here, and then we spent it elsewhere to teach more people, to bring them to the company, to bring more talent to the company, to share our workload. I had like a lot of work before I built the Quest design department. But then the people came and they just helped me, and I was like off those duties of Quest designer. I was free not to implement stuff, although I love it. I was free not to write stuff and so on because they did it for me.
Another question? Yep.
Hello, really nice talk. Thank you very much for coming. In the first, similar to this topic we're talking about right now, in the first project, Grimoire, you have this tactical combat really based on, and really similar to Divinity the Original Sin and similar. But then do you suddenly change to this more classic RPG, like combat one-to-one with timelines and everything? How was it you decided to make this huge, actually really huge change in the combat system, as it's a really important one and usually might make the difference between what kind of buyer persona or people would buy actually the game? So how would you decide to make this huge change?
So let me rephrase that again because the noise. So you would like to know how we switched from one model to another. So first of all, the tactical combat was an experiment for us because we are not the company that makes tactical combat games. And this is a difficult job to do. We have no experience in it. And I guess we were a bit under the impression after the Divinity that we worked for, and we knew these systems from the inside, right? But then again, we are not as big of a team. And this combat is like extremely complicated in terms of what kind of units you use, what kind of expansions you use, what kind of upgrades can you use, how can you interact with the battlefield, right? How can it change? So because we were a smaller team and also the thaumaturge changed, we wanted to be closer to the hero. We had this one dude commanding the bunch of demons, and we switched the balance to him and the demons, right? But instead of making many of them, we made them unique. And then we made this another rule that this guy is nothing without them, all right? So make them important. They play the main fiddle here, and this guy is just a guy that touches the book, right? And makes spells and so on. But also, even if it's combat, it fits to the narration of it. We see our enemies up close. We read their names. We see the tactics that they will choose because we see the timeline at the top of the screen, right? And then we also have the cinematic sequences of the attacks. So if you throw the punch, you see your character throwing a punch in the stomach of the enemy. If you command Salutor to do anything, they will just, destroy your enemies in the cinematic shorts. And we really wanted to have it. So it would be kind of difficult, challenging, and maybe it won't fit the tactical combat because you're up there and then up close, up there and up close. And it was like a mess at some point. And I'm glad we moved into the more persona-like style of combat because it allowed us to tell a lot more about the vibe, especially of boss battles.
More questions? Okay. Another question I have is, because you had a big team, so 60 people, what tools do you use mainly from the design part to communicate and to make things, documentation, for this project?
So in terms of communication, like minute to minute, we use Slack. And we have the rule that, hey, if this is you, then put your picture next to your name, right? If you call me, then show yourself, because it's easier. It's like, it's not the human-to-human interaction, but it's like well mimicked one, right? You can see your speaker, your interlocutor. You can understand them better because you see them, you see their faces, you see their expression, and so on. So we moved totally to that. Of course, right now after the pandemic, we have few people in the studio, but it's like 10 people maybe because they like it, they need it, and they want to be in the studio. I work remotely from home totally, and being like the decisive person, it doesn't affect my work that much. We meet online, we use our calendars a lot, so the calendar is God, right? If you want to meet me, put it in a calendar, because otherwise someone else will. And we also keep track of online documentation. So we use Google Docs, for example, and whatever decision made should be written as a note after the meeting, and then if major design decisions are made, it should be in the doc. Because then the new person comes in, they can onboard, they can read all that. You keep it tidy, really. Something that was missing when we were all in the studio, because talking by the coffee machine and so on, it shouldn't look like that, or you should keep track of it.
Any other question? Okay, so a big applause to Carolina. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo. Cała przyjemność po mojej stronie.
Okay.
Do we see each other in the evening, or should we book a...
My suggestion, if you want, the problem is that you have gone to a Japanese system, but we are going to a izakaya. That is here in Valencia.
That's perfect. We can eat Japanese every day. Don't worry.
Is at I can send you the place just in case, but if you are here, we can go together.
Okay, what time are you going there?
8. 8 opens at 8:30, so we like to be earlier because there is a queue usually.
But when are you leaving here?
6.
6.
Yes, we close at 6.
Okay, and you go straight there?
Should I make a reservation maybe?
No, it's impossible. So the reservation is going there 30 minutes before.
Okay, so we're going to probably drop the laptop
Perfect.
at the hotel,
Perfect.
walk around and come back. Yeah?
Okay,
6.
perfect.
We would love to go.
Okay, if you have any problems, send me something. Email or WhatsApp or whatever. Dime. Sí, no me he visto. Yo dije de quitarlo del schedule, pero no se quitó del schedule. Pero sí que lo dije. Porque si no podía llevar a engaño y no hay. Lo siento infinito. Curiosamente, ahora es la Feria del Empleo de Valencia. Eso sería el Job Workshop. ¿Tú querías ponerte?